Hey, it's me, and I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite horror games, Silent Hill 2. In honor of October and Spooky Month, I will be hopefully uploading this video either on Halloween or sometime before, and I just wanted to take some time from your day to ramble about what I think is one of the greatest forms of horror. So let's begin, shall we? So, Silent Hill 2, a little bit of history, when it comes to Konami and how they made this game. There was a cool little team named Team Silent, funnily enough, that were put together to work on a game. They didn't really know what game, from what I remember correctly, and they just kind of fell into making some kind of horror game. And they didn't really know fully where to start. They decided to take inspiration from a bunch of Western media and how we in America make our horror movies, stories, and things of that nature. Team Silent drew lots of inspiration from creators such as David Cronenberg, David Fincher, David Lynch, and Alfred Hitchcock, along with a bunch of movies that were just all psychological thrillers and horrors from the film Jacob's Ladder. From doing a quick Google search, they even had some inspiration from painters like Francis Bacon and Rembrandt and Andrew Wyeth. I've never really looked at their works personally myself, but after looking them up and having a look, I can totally see where all this came from. Unfortunately, after creating a bunch of games together, Team Silent, the people behind a majority of the early series within this franchise, disbanded. And it kind of makes me sad because, it seems like we had such banger games coming out around this time from these people, only to have them all just kind of separate and disband, either due to creative differences or just not feeling like there was anything else left to do. And seeing how, as Silent Hill 2 recently had its remake come out, I felt like it was only appropriate for me to talk a little bit about the game as to why I absolutely adore it, and maybe why, if you guys haven't heard or played it for yourselves, why you should give it a try and, watch either a playthrough on it or pick up the game yourself. So, I'm an absolute baby when it comes to horror. I will cry like a little bitch anytime I play horror games, but that doesn't stop me from getting invested or involved into certain games on just the merit of their story alone. Silent Hill 2, I think, has one of the best stories, in my opinion. Silent Hill 2 follows this character named James Sunderland. What happens is he is led to this town known as Silent Hill by a letter from his wife. And he comes to this town in hopes of finding her. But as soon as he gets here, all he finds is this foggy town that's just surrounded by creatures that seem very otherworldly and demonic by nature. As you play the game as James and go throughout this town, you find puzzles and little things here and there to help you get on with your journey to find your wife. Along the way, you are met with some really interesting characters. As James, stumbling through Silent Hill, you eventually encounter characters like Angela, Eddie, Maria, and Laura. All characters brought here to Silent Hill seemingly for a reason, and as you interact with them more, you begin to learn what that reason is for. Angela, much like you, is in this town searching for someone. Her mother. She runs into James a couple of times throughout the game. As you run into her more and more often, the game reveals to you that she's had this traumatic past that's just really warped her personality and her mental health, especially because of her relationships with her father and her brother. You start to learn and find out that some of the reasons that she is the way that she is because she had dealt with so much domestic abuse from her family. Because of that, she was feeling suicidal, very introverted and timid, and just scared of not only you, but everyone around her. Earlier, I mentioned how this game has monsters. Well, with Angela, in her story, you encounter a monster known as the Abstract Daddy, what can be interpreted as a manifestation of how she sees her father and her brother and how they were abusive to her and her mother. And you help her fight this demon, and Angela seemingly shows absolutely no remorse after killing what was supposed to be her dad. Angela isn't the only character here that is battling some demons when coming to this town. You also run into Eddie, another character who was very insecure, mentally disturbed, and he was severely bullied. Much like Angela and James, Eddie is drawn to Silent Hill through his troubled past. He doesn't really have much else to do or anywhere to really go, so he's just stuck here, waiting to just do whatever needs to be done. You find out that Eddie is someone that you can't fully trust. A little bit more background on him. He just kind of what you'd imagine the stereotypical person who gets bullied in media to be. Someone who is overweight, just not conventionally what would be attractive. Eddie, much like most of us who has ever dealt with anything like this, feels like he was born losing the genetic lottery. He just absolutely hates the body that he was born in. Eddie develops an eating disorder, almost to cope with his troubles. There was this high school bully of his that followed him throughout his life even after graduation. At one point, Eddie finally snaps and retaliates by not only killing his dog, but shooting this guy in the leg, ultimately crippling him. Rather than killing his bully, Eddie just runs, eventually ending up in Silent Hill. Then there's Laura, this small kid that you think would absolutely get murdered by all these monsters that reside in Silent Hill. But you soon find out that she's kind of capable and a little bit of a piece of shit. But for good reason. Laura, you see, is much like us as James. She's here in Silent Hill in search for Mary, James's wife. The reason for this is that Laura found a letter from Mary saying that she's gone somewhere far away in a quiet, beautiful place. And so, Laura interpreted this as, well, she must be in this town, not in heaven, but in Silent Hill. Laura, unlike the previous characters, is the only person in Silent Hill to have a completely innocent past. She was just a young girl who managed to become best friends with James's wife Mary, and all she wants is to go through Silent Hill and looks for her best friend. Because of the fact that Laura is just this innocent child, she doesn't see the things we're seeing, which leads to some very interesting interactions between her and James. Laura is a little distant with us at the start, and we as James, as the adult character, want to protect her, but she's confused. She doesn't see why you would want to protect her, because what we see isn't what she sees. Her bratty nature just surfaces and comes to not only make it hard for us as James to approach her, but also hard to understand her. She begrudgingly works with us at some point, only because we share a common goal of finding Mary Sunderland. So now that I've given you a bit of a breakdown on some of these interesting characters, hopefully as spoiler-free as possible, because I really want you guys to play this game for yourselves or look into it more, I want to tell you why I love this game. Something I don't think I talk about enough, whether it be to friends or on stream or even here to you guys, my YouTube audience, is my absolute fascination with psychological horror. I have always been a fan of weird things like this, going back to things like Pet Shop Horrors or Junji Ito's works and, well, the Silent Hill games by Konami. There's just something about it that tickles my brain. And even though I'm a little scaredy cat, pun intended, I can't help but fall in love with the atmosphere that Silent Hill 2 brings. Not only was this game very innovative for the time that it was released, but it was just such a cool concept of everything that James sees in this town is a reflection of who he really is. Same with all the other characters. Silent Hill was made to draw in sinners. Now, I don't want to get into religion because I'm agnostic, but the reason I use sinners is because everyone in Silent Hill is led to here by their past, by their traumas, by their wrongdoings, and just anything that they did throughout their life that could be considered bad, evil, or just them being a victim to something draws them to this place that seemingly brings to life everything that they're afraid of. And see, the reason I like this a lot is because most horror games nowadays, and even back then, rely heavily on jump scares and things that catch you off guard. Whereas games like Silent Hill put you on the edge of your seat from start to end. You don't know what's going to be around that corner all the time. I mean, the entire game is covered in fog and darkness, but that doesn't necessarily mean something's going to jump out at you every time. What Silent Hill does is build this environment that's just filled with things that will just creep you out. And I think playing to things like that, playing to world building and environmental storytelling and usage of the unknown is much better than turning a corner and getting a cheap jump scare or two, or having something jump out at you in a cutscene just seemingly out of nowhere, just getting a cheap scare out of you as the player. No. See, Silent Hill likes to build and build and build upon the things that you don't know are there. And I think it's such a clever thing too, just developmentally, because the fog not only helps keep you on the edge of your seat, but it's such a cool tech thing that Team Silent, came up with. Not only does it serve a purpose of being scary, but it also helps the PlayStation 2 render all of the environment, essentially. And for that alone, I think it's amazing. And James's story is something that I think, without spoiling it, is very, very interesting. I find myself coming back to this game over and over again, rewatching retrospectives, lore videos that talk about why the monsters look the way that they do, or character breakdowns, and all I can do is hope that maybe I inspire you guys to maybe take a look at this game, or at the very least, if not Silent Hill 2, maybe look into why you love a certain genre or a certain franchise so much. Because I think being able to reflect on why you love something and why you like it so much not only helps you appreciate it more, but you kind of learn a lot more about yourself along the way too, in some kind of weird philosophical way, or whatever. Silent Hill 2, to me, was and will always be one of the best horror games to ever have come out. And I look forward to eventually playing the remake. And I hope that it doesn't necessarily meet all of my expectations, but that it hopefully stays as true as it can be to the original. And for those of you who either already have or are looking into getting the remake, I say play the original afterward at some point if you can, or first, and see which one you like better. I'll be sure to let you guys know after playing them which one I like more. So yeah, this is my silly little incoherent ramble about Silent Hill 2. I am sorry if it was a little all over the place. I didn't script this too much because I've been really busy, so I just kind of had bullet points and wikis up to kind of help me construct sentences to tell you guys a lot about this game. And then I wanted to be as vague as possible as well in some things, because I really, really want people to check this game out if they haven't. because the Silent Hill franchise is something that I think is much more fun to experience when you don't know everything. Because the one thing that makes these games so incredible to me is that everything is up to interpretation. Thank you guys for listening. Goodbye.